I married my wife 9 years ago. I do love my wife, we share a son together, and I couldn't imagine our life without her. My only wish is that she wasn't so insecure, but she is human. With that said, let's get started. My wife is 39 and struggles a lot with insecurity. To remedy this, she's surrounded herself with friends whom, truthfully, she thinks less of. Many of her friends have been out of shape, poor, mentally unstable and such, and my wife has admitted she feels like the stable and sensible one with all of them. When she's not talking about them like they're charity cases, she's usually insulting them. Before it's asked, my wife is in therapy and says she likes the therapist but doesn't think she's truly the issue. Now, her youngest friend, 31, Candy, was one of the many friends my wife used for her security. Candy was a mess as a teenager, barely passed high school, couldn't hold a job, and was in and out of hospitals due to unmedicated mental health problems. My wife was probably the cruelest to her out of all her friends because Candy never really stood up for herself. At some point, we didn't understand how or what came over her, but Candy did a 180, got medicated, got a degree, and now is living in a nice country house with a well-paying job, her husband and 3 kids. Watching Candy change over the years has messed with my wife a lot. She's been crueler to her and constantly insults her house, her job, and even how she raises her kids. She loves to mention all the mistakes Candy made when she was young. Candy never said anything until yesterday. We were at her house around a fire and my wife asked how Candy could even be a fit mom after all her mental health problems. Candy, who was tipsy, looked at my wife and said, paraphrasing of course, "You know, when I was young I took your words to heart until I learned you were just as messed up as me, and I realized to fully get back at all the ways you hurt me, there was no point in telling you or asking for an apology, it was simply by being better than you. And now I am." Now I laughed, not so much out of humour but more shock. I got a death glare followed by my wife abruptly walking to the car and a threatening text she'd leave me behind if I didn't follow. We drove home in silence. When we got back, my wife was crying in the bedroom. When I tried to comfort her, she chucked all my stuff in my direction and screamed to leave. I now write this from my parents, who don't think I'm wrong, but at the same time, they don't like my wife. Am I the idiot? I join your parents here. You're not the idiot, but your wife is incredibly messed up and you might give some thought to taking your son and leaving before she messes him up. You are so close to her that you may not even have a good view of how being with a person like her changes your brain and your sense of reality and right and wrong. See a therapist for yourself. My mother was like her, and I'm looking at my stepfather after their 30-plus years together. He's a husk of the man he used to be. He had to essentially toss out his own mind and replace it with hers because it was the only way to avoid her cruelty and abuse and survive next to her. OP lived by the mantra, "I don't have to be faster than the bear, I just have to be faster than you." Unfortunately, Candy's been working out and has fresh Nikes, and OP has just found out the bear is very hungry. You are the idiot for making excuses for your loathsome-sounding wife. You said, "My wife preys on vulnerable people to bully and abuse, to feed her voracious ego." Poor little baby. She struggles a lot with insecurity. To remedy this, she has surrounded herself with friends who, truthfully, she thinks lesser of. Dude, are you sure this doesn't include you? And if it does, are you happy with that? If you do insist on staying with her, make sure you never have any more kids with her anymore. Your son is probably mostly safe, but if you ever have a daughter, your wife will do everything she can to wreck that little girl. I had the same thought. She would 100% view a daughter as competition. She's with him because she thinks she's better than him and lightly tears him down to her friends, which should make him think harder about his choice of spouse and how she will terrorize him as soon as he makes any positive changes in himself. It's one reason why he laughed when Candy tore his wife apart. He already knows what she'll do to him. Dig deeper into their marriage and you will find that OP has been humiliated by his wife more often than he's willing to admit publicly. Leaving her would be the intelligent thing to do, but he likes being Heather Duke to her Heather Chandler. But boy, I feel so bad for their kid. I'm getting married soon and want to have my little sister, Tween, as my junior bridesmaid. She's in love with princesses and anything princessy. She even has a gorgeous white princess dress that she's always wanted to wear. She asked me if she could wear it for my wedding and I said, why not? Go ahead. She looked so happy and she was very excited, especially because we let her buy high heels and my parents allowed her to wear makeup for my wedding. When my fiancé found out, he was against it, He argued that she shouldn't wear a white princess dress for our wedding, it was inappropriate. I told him that I didn't have a problem with it and I didn't think a kid was going to outshine me, and asked him if he was worried that she would outshine him. To be fair, she probably will outshine him. She is going to be the cutest princess. He called me ridiculous and said since my sister can wear that, then is it okay for his sisters to wear something like that? I told him his sisters, 23 and 21, are a bit old for that, but sure, why not? I could use a good laugh at my wedding. I told him he was acting crazy and I cared more about my sister because I've known her longer. He called me an idiot and he thinks since it's our wedding, this should be our decision. Am I the idiot for telling my fiancé that he's acting crazy? Not the idiot. While he's also obviously allowed to make decisions with regard to the wedding, it's just plain weird that he thinks a tween and a 23-year-old wearing white to a wedding is equivalent, especially if he thinks that a child will outshine him. We actually had my nieces in white for our wedding. All we did was tie ribbons in their hair to match the colour of the other bridesmaids. It made every match really nice. Saying you care more about your sister because you know her longer is really telling. You're marrying him and your sister shouldn't have more say in the wedding than him. I'm sorry, but you are the idiot. Your sister isn't getting married, you and your fiancé are. Yes, she should have a nice time, but it isn't her big day. The fact you were so dismissive of your partner wasn't, and preferences on both of your weddings are rude. Your sister is young, but she's old enough to understand that it isn't her big day, that she has to wear something else, etc. Her fiancé is an adult. He shouldn't be so jealous of a kid. I'm sorry, that's pathetic. Nothing about this moment is making the day about her sister. He's acting like more of a child than the actual child. Guys can be bridezillas too. Is he a groomzilla? A grown man shouldn't have an opinion on what his underage niece will be wearing to a wedding. No, the bride shouldn't have a discussion about this. There's nothing to discuss. This is a non-issue that's been made into an issue by the groom. I, 24 female, am one of 4 kids. My siblings are Dylan, 32 male, Evie, 29 female, and Hannah, 27 female. This post is about Hannah. I'm the first of us to have children, and Hannah, while not a mom, is obsessed with names. She has joined forums to advise on naming kids. Anyone asks her opinion on a name, and she goes into overdrive and, depending on the name, will insult the name, the person who has that name or likes the name, and imply that that name should be criminal. Or she will tell the person how amazing it is, and it will set the child up for success and be praised by everyone they ever meet. I'm not sure she has a middle ground. Once Hannah learned I was pregnant, she asked my husband and me about names we liked and whether we wanted her help. I said a very firm no, and told her no name would be shared until the baby was born and the name was official. Hannah suggested very strongly that this would be a terrible idea. I told her we didn't want people interjecting or interfering in the name choice. The name my husband and I chose for our daughter is a name Hannah insulted heavily on more than one occasion. The name is Lyra. Dylan's girlfriend mentioned how sweet she thought the name was and how it reminded her of the character Lyra from his Dark Materials. My sister told Dylan's girlfriend that she should learn the proper naming procedure and had to be shut down by Dylan because she was going overboard. Dylan's girlfriend isn't even pregnant and there's been zero talk of kids so far, so Hannah was way too over the top. Hannah pressured me to find more info on the name. She pestered me non-stop and accused me of picking a name that would set my child up for a lifetime of shame. I told her she was too extreme and she responded that I could tell her the name and let her decide for herself. I told her to drop it, and if she keeps pushing or if she tries to find out the name in other ways, she can forget about being invited to my baby shower and she can forget about being invited to meet the baby without a very sincere apology, and I will need proof of her understanding. My husband and I decided to set up a fake name for her to find out if she did go snooping, and sure enough she did. She went ballistic over the name choice, and I told her she'd done what I told her not to do and that she was warned. My sister said not inviting her would be an idiot move. My parents also think I should still invite her and that I'm blowing this out of proportion. They say a fight over names is not a good reason to exclude a family member. Does anyone know why she's so psychotic about this? Like, good God, maybe she hates her name. Your family is doing your sister a disservice by not acknowledging that your sister has a problem. Not the idiot, and they wouldn't invite her either. She's unhinged. You've picked a beautiful name for your daughter. I wouldn't want Hannah anywhere near me after this. It's one thing for her to give advice about naming a child, but quite another to lose her crap like this over something that's not her business at all. Parents enable Hannah and are deep in denial about how unhealthy her behavior is because this isn't just a fight over names. The issue is her entitlement, lack of respect for people, and an extreme need for control. This is an obsession, and Hannah needs help to deal with that. Until she seeks that help, you're well within your rights to not only follow through with not inviting her to the baby shower, but also generally go low or no contact with her. I've been at this company for about 2 years now, and one of my co-workers, John, and I have become good friends and get along well. We're both happily married and just friends, though we do catch up on life during work hours. My husband has been away on a business trip for 2 weeks now. John and I were chatting in the office this morning, and I mentioned that I'd been at my house alone for the past week and pretty bored without my husband. He asked me what I like to do to pass the time, and that I must be a bit pent up with my husband gone for that long. I was surprised he said that, but I feel comfortable enough around it that it didn't bother me, and I chalked it up to playful banter. I jokingly told him I knew exactly how to please myself when my husband is away. He got really awkward and uncomfortable, and we've been distant since. I just checked my inbox and there was a meeting on my calendar from HR. I tried to message John, but he wasn't responding, and my manager came by my desk and told me that my behavior was ridiculous and to not speak to John until I was told otherwise. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot, and this man has the gall to complain about you? Wow. When he says, "Oh, I didn't mean it that way," you can say, "Well, clearly I didn't mean my comment the way your filthy mind took it. You know I love to cook. Of course, I was talking about cooking and eating whatever I want without worrying whether my husband will like it." When you get to HR, be utterly confused. Yeah, I get to eat all the chocolate chip cookie dough alone when my husband is gone. I don't even have to bake the cookies. Or clean up right away. I get to please myself and do what I want. I'm sorry, is there a problem? It's their interpretation that makes it about intimacy. They can't prove otherwise, and your co-worker is trying to sabotage you. You please yourself by reading alone. You please yourself by watching movies your husband wouldn't watch. You really please yourself by doing what you can't do when your husband is around. Your co-worker needs to get his mind out of the gutter. Update, I just got out of my meeting with HR. I was able to convince everyone that it was just a misunderstanding and that I meant I could entertain myself while my husband was away. It's interesting that John didn't bring up his comment in the HR complaint. I brought that up myself, and he got scared and began to say that he meant that I must be bored in the house, all alone with nothing to do. I let him have it. They won't be pursuing a formal investigation because they're chalking it up to a misunderstanding, but they keep everything on record in case anything happens again. They're temporarily moving John to a different team, and my manager apologized to me for being harsh with them earlier. I will not be speaking to or interacting with John going forward. My wife, 35, and I, 35 male, have been together for 10 years, married 5. We grew up completely different. She's the only child of a surgeon father. Her mother died when she was 2, and it was her and her father for most of her life. He remarried when she was 17. He's wealthy, sent her to private school, paid for her college, and when we met a year ago he was still paying her rent, even though she had a solid job. I come from a poor family, but we both have pretty good jobs and make the same amount of money now. She is such a daddy's girl, and it's been affecting our relationship. Anytime she wants or needs something, she goes to her dad first. And sometimes it's about things I could help with. I work in tech, and back when we started dating, she was starting grad school, and she asked her dad, "What laptop should I get?" I told her I actually work in the field, which she already knew, and could easily answer that and get her what she needed, and she just kind of shrugged. Okay, fine. These little things have happened throughout the last decade, but there have been bigger issues recently. Last year she decided she needed a new car. I disagreed. Her car is fine and she works from home and barely drives. She was adamant though. She tells me she's getting a new car about a month later. I told her we needed to make these decisions together, and we shared finances, and this was a major purchase. She says, "Oh, my dad's buying it. He said we can just sell mine and get some extra money." I told her it's kind of ridiculous to ask her dad to buy her a brand new car when she has a perfectly good one and we don't need it anyway. She got upset and said it wasn't that big of a deal and her dad didn't mind, and that the car wasn't that expensive anyways. She said I'm overreacting, that it's okay for her dad to do nice things for her. She got a brand new 2022 car completely paid for by her dad, and she sold her old one. Now we're buying a new house. We finally narrowed it down to 2 options. We were discussing it last week and my wife said, "Oh, I don't think House A is good. My dad says he thinks we could do a lot better in our budget. Before she talked to her dad, she loved house A. So I got a bit frustrated and said it didn't matter what her dad thought because this was our family's home and he wouldn't be living there. She got angry. We started arguing. We both said mean things. I called her a spoiled brat and said she needed to grow up, and she got upset and slept in the guest room. It's been a few days and we've barely spoken. She said I was so mean to her. You are the idiot. You just sound super insecure about her father. Take a moment to reflect on your complaint. She asked her dad for advice on a laptop. You're jealous. That's all there is to it, and it's pathetic. Instead of worrying about her relationship with her father and calling her names, why aren't you using rich father-in-law to your advantage? Like you actually started a fight over her getting a new car that neither of you had to pay for. Just insane. He's complaining that she asked her dad for advice on a laptop 10 years ago. Good grief. It sounds like you want her to take your advice on everything and not her dad's. You need marriage counseling to deal with both of your issues. This is a great way to lose your marriage otherwise. Deal with your issues instead of hurting your wife. You show nothing but mild contempt for your wife here. I disagree, not the idiot. If the roles were reversed and this was a man who ran to mummy all the time, there wouldn't be a single "you are the idiot" here. It's not about getting support if they need it. It could be about having a married relationship and feeling like they're both in this together. Not them and her dad or his mommy in the relationship too. Yes, being mean to your wife isn't nice, but this has been boiling for a while because you're married to her dad's opinion. If you want to keep this marriage, you need counseling.